The show starts off in a dreamlike recollection where our main character, Han So-mong, paints a canvas in the school's art room. Her subject is Lee Ha-min, her first high school sweetheart. It's a rainy summer afternoon and everything seems to be normal, but the reality is completely different. It's revealed that Ha-min sadly took his own life, and ever since then, So-mong has been revisiting their cherished memories. Fast forward to 6 years later, So-mong is now a university graduate and is spending the night with her friends to celebrate the graduation. Ju-young, who appears to have a crush on her, asks about what she plans to do next. Our heroine tells him that she's returning to her old high school to become a trainee teacher. Much to her surprise, Ju-young has also applied to the same school. The following day, So-mong arrives at Seo-young High School and tells herself that she's finally come to the place where she first met her high school boyfriend. While she's admiring the school entrance, a figure passes by that looks exactly like Ha-min. Our girl is shaken, but she comes back to her senses when Ju-young taps her from behind. The two colleagues then proceed to the school where the headmaster introduces them and shows them around. During this time, So-mong comes across the art room where she and her boyfriend spend most of their high school days hanging out in secret. In a flashback, we learn that Ha-min used to be the class president. He appeared to be popular and helpful, but in reality, he kept everyone at a distance. He needed a place to be himself without the pressure of being social all the time. As for So-mong, she was a quiet and reserved person by nature. She enjoyed painting during lunchtime because it was then that she felt the most comfortable expressing herself. Their shared desire for solitude and a break from social interactions brought them together in this quiet, empty art room. In the art room, So-mong discovered a side of Ha-min that no one else knew. Despite accepting gifts with a smile from classmates, he would later discard them without even reading the attached note. In order to look cool, he asked So-mong not to be friendly with him outside the art room. Back in the present, our heroine steps into the art room for the first time in many years, but she's so overwhelmed by the memories that she faints dead away. Shortly after, she's awakened by a kind and pretty girl named Bo-mi, who explains what happened. This is when So-mong learns that she kept repeating her ex-boyfriend's name. Later in the hallway, she spots Ha-min approaching her. She quickly reaches out to his face with tears in her eyes and tells him that at last, they're finally reunited. However, it's not Ha-min, and the boy is stunned by her actions. When So-mong finally comes to her senses, she apologizes for mistaking him for someone else. Meanwhile, Bo-mi watches the awkward interaction from a distance. Turns out she and the boy are close friends, and they go to the same class. Later, So-mong talks with the headmaster and learns that the boy from earlier is Lee Jae-min, her ex-boyfriend's younger brother. It's revealed that he moved away with his mom after Ha-min's untimely death. But when his mom remarried, he returned to live with his dad. Just then, Bo-mi arrives in the teacher's room to submit her homework. It's then revealed that she's the current class president. So-mong introduces herself to the teenager, and the two have a brief conversation before parting ways. Later, Bo-mi talks to her best friend Soon-hee and tells her about today's incident. She finds it odd that the new teacher So-mong kept calling out a person's name and then mistook Jae-min for the same person. Following this, the girls join their friends for lunch where they discuss their school crushes. Bo-mi recalls the day Jae-min asked her out, but she turned him down, saying that she just wants to remain friends. It's revealed that she does like him, but she doesn't accept the proposal because Soon-hee also likes him. Bo-mi then lies and says she likes a classmate named Jin-young, but her friend doesn't buy it as the guy is very stoic and blunt by nature. Unbeknownst to them, Jin-young and his friends overhear their conversation. This shocks them, and they wonder how such a perfect girl like Bo-mi could like him. The next day, So-mong approaches Jae-min and talks about his late brother. She reminisces about the time they spent together and all the fun they had. However, she doesn't disclose their relationship, claiming they were just friends. As the conversation delves deeper, So-mong abruptly asks Jae-min to be her model at the art studio. The latter takes his time considering the idea, but eventually agrees on the condition that she shares everything about his brother. In a flashback, we see that Ha-min always shielded Jae-min from their overbearing mother so that his little brother could pursue his own dreams. The next day, So-mong announces to the class that they need to clean the art room, so she will need some volunteers. Bo-mi, Jae-min, Jin-young, and two other friends give their name for the task. Later in the art room, Jin-young confronts Bo-mi about what she said during lunch the other day. He wants to know if she really likes him, or if it was just a facade to save face. The scene shifts to a flashback where young So-mong and Ha-min are hanging out in the art room. Our heroine abruptly asks him to pose as a model for her, and he gladly agrees to do so. Back in the present, Bo-mi is anxious since she doesn't really like Jin-young. Her dilemma has a straightforward solution: just tell him the truth. However, as someone who is used to pleasing others, she decides to fake date Jin-young. The latter agrees to do so on the condition that they tell everyone that it was Bo-mi who proposed first. In the next scene, when the couple reveals that they're dating, their friends are shocked. Soon-hee calls bullshit and says that there's no prior connection between the two to become friends, let alone dating. Bomi is clearly caught off guard, but Jin Young steps up and says he developed feelings for her while they were cleaning the art room together, and eventually asked her out. However, he soon realizes that he fucked up because they had originally claimed that it was Bomi who had asked him out first. Despite this, the charade goes on. During the lunch break, soon he glares at them from a distance, so Bomi sticks close to her new boyfriend so that no one suspects them. The scene then cuts to So-mong, who continues to reflect on her days with Ha-min. Each step back into those memories breaks her heart all over again. In a flashback, we see the two of them in the same art room. As our heroine spends more time with him, she discovers that the caring class president everyone else saw was merely an act. He would be kind and give a piggyback ride to a girl with a sprained ankle in gym class, only to later complain about a sore back in the art room. With So-mong, he never held back his sarcasm or dislike for the other students, but in front of them, he pretended to be humble and soft-spoken. One time when she asks him why he puts on the act, Ha-min reveals that it's his duty as the class president to be helpful and jolly in front of others. He then reveals that the only person he genuinely cares about is his younger brother, Jae-min. He works hard to maintain his perfect and popular image, all to keep his mother from pressuring his little brother. As time passes by, Ha-min begins to warm up even more to So-mong. It's because he didn't need to pretend around her, and she wasn't afraid to call him out when he was being insincere. One day, he notices her struggling with her bangs and offers to cut them for her. So-mong hesitantly agrees to accept his help, but when she opens her eyes to see the result, she screams in embarrassment as he's done a terrible job. The next day in class, Ha-min finds an excuse to talk to the student in front of So-mong. He then leaves a hair clip on her desk, along with a cute apology note. Back in the present, So-mong still has the hair clip, and she wears it when she's meeting with Jae-min. As the two talk, he reveals that after the death of his brother, a lot of his friends reached out to him, but they never mentioned anyone named So-mong. In response, our heroine gives him a sad smile and explains that they used to be secret friends. The scene then shifts to another flashback. One day when Ha-min is passing in the hallway with a mean girl, So-mong involuntarily chuckles. She finds it amusing how he acts so differently in front of the other students. Unfortunately, the girl is offended, and she later confronts So-mong at her desk. She calls her ugly and threatens to cut her bangs even shorter. But before she can cause any harm, Ha-min intervenes. The mean girl calls him out for not taking her side, but our hero claims that he's actually doing this for her. He doesn't want her to be expelled from the school. He insists that he doesn't know So-mong and that this is their first meeting. The incident leaves So-mong with a scratch on her hand as the bully was threatening her with a pair of scissors, but she's more upset about how her crush treated her in front of others. Later, Ha-min approaches her in the art room with a sad face. Although he doesn't apologize, he feels regretful as he places a butterfly-shaped bandage over her scratch. Thankfully, this marks a turning point in their relationship. Ha-min is now willing to spend time with her heroine outside of school, and is even interested in visiting the art studio she told him about. The following weekend, the two go to see the studio. They decide to sneak inside, as the place is currently closed. However, not long after they arrive, the director unexpectedly shows up. This forces them to cram themselves inside a storage closet to hide. At this moment, the couple is physically closer than ever before. They exchange an awkward moment and are about to kiss, but the director suddenly leaves the studio, prompting them to come out. Back in the present, Bomi decides to get closer to Jin Young as she wants to know him better. She reasons that she's doing so to make their fake relationship seem more real. However, it turns out that both of them have actually started to like each other's company. In the following days, Jin Young begins waiting for her on the way to school. He even introduces her to a little game during class. When he wins, Bomi's competitive side takes over and she spends the whole class asking for one rematch after another. In the next scene, the school prepares for the much-awaited sports day. Badminton partners are assigned by height in gym class, which means Bomi partners with Jae-min, and Soon-hee pairs up with Jin Young. On sports day, there's a tradition of sending flowers as a gesture of affection. Bomi, being the belle of the school, is showered with a variety of beautiful flowers. Seeing this, her friends criticize Jin Young, claiming that he doesn't seem very concerned about all the flowers she's receiving. Bomi also agrees with them, probably because she wants his attention. Later as the game begins, Jin Young dominates his opponent with his impressive moves. But Bomi doesn't get to see him win the competition as she has to leave for her badminton match. In the evening, he shows her his trophy and also surprises her with a flower. When Bomi accepts it, he gives her a big smile before abruptly leaving for home. In the meantime, Jae-min decides to model for So-mong. As the two spend more time together, she starts to notice similarities between him and Ha-min. This sends her down a trip on memory lane. She recalls one day finding Ha-min crying in the art room. He didn't reveal the cause and simply said he was fine. Our heroine then asks Jae-min if there were any issues at home during that time. The boy says no, but it's evident that he's lying. In a flashback, we learn that their parents had decided to enroll Jae-min in a gifted students academy. Ha-min strongly opposed this decision, leading to a heated argument. He became so angry that he inadvertently pushed his younger brother aside, causing him to fall and hit his head. Back in the present, Jae-min returns home and goes through his brother's belongings. He has Ha-min's diary, which reveals how much he was feeling guilty for treating his brother that way. His guilt worsened when So-mong had seen him crying in the art room, so he had decided to ignore her for good. He feared that he might become too reliant on her for support and understanding. Despite this, So-mong never gave up on Ha-min and continued offering support in her own way. She secretly gifted him an adorable drawing of a bunny sheltering a fox with an umbrella. She had even added an encouraging note for him. Jae-min then discovers the same drawing tucked in his brother's diary. So the following day, he gives it to our heroine. She goes through the diary and learns that Ha-min really appreciated the umbrella gesture, and it helped him through some of his toughest times. The scene then shifts back to a flashback on their sports day. Ha-min finally reaches out to So-mong and stops ignoring her. He also volunteers to be her model for face painting. He then confesses that he kept their friendship a secret because he knew everyone would like her once they got to know her, but he wanted her all to himself. While the other students cheer for their teams from the rooftop, Ha-min reaches over and holds her hand in the midst of the crowd. Back in the present, Jae-min approaches Bo-mi and engages her in conversation. He reveals that he heard her and Jin-young talking about their relationship being fake. He then lets her know that she doesn't have to keep the secret to herself. But despite their relationship being fake, Jin-young and Bo-mi have started growing closer. She is now certain that he is the right partner for her. One day, the pair is chosen to represent their class in a couple of dance battles, allowing them to be closer and more personal. They practice their dance in the art room, where Bo-mi takes the lead to teach Jin-young. During the process, she accidentally steps on his foot and nearly falls, but Jin-young catches her midair, and they have a romantic silence, which leaves them both blushing. As days pass by, Bo-mi and Jin-young share their problems with each other. She talks about her mom yelling at her for her slipping grades, and how disappointed she is in herself for not handling everything more gracefully. In response, Jin-young expresses that he admires her and encourages her to be just the way she is. He also shares that he initially thought she was making things unnecessarily complicated, but now he understands why she's so thoughtful. As summer approaches, So-mong gets emotional as she's flooded with her ex-boyfriend's memories. Turns out Ha-min used to hate summer because the humidity made him feel suffocated. However, one day his perspective changed when they secretly held hands on the rooftop. In a flashback, we see Ha-min secretly enroll at So-mong's art studio. He does this to spend more time with her instead of attending the lecture his parents want. The scene shifts to the art studio where the teacher asks Ha-min to draw anything he wants. Initially, he stares sadly at the blank canvas for a long time. But then, he creates a heartbreakingly beautiful picture of a man sitting hunched over with big butterfly wings on his back. Later, when they're leaving the art studio, it suddenly starts raining. Ha-min rolls his eyes in annoyance, but So-mong is filled with happiness. She tosses both of their umbrellas aside, grabs his hand and runs down the street until he is smiling and laughing with her. They then return to the studio to dry off and wrap themselves in the only blanket available. At this point, Ha-min is smiling and he seems to be really enjoying the moment. He thanks So-mong for teaching him the joy of doing what he wants instead of what he's supposed to do. He then slowly leans in and kisses her. After this romantic encounter, the young couple holds hands and shyly admits that this was their first kiss. In the present day, So-mong once again drops her umbrella and lets the rain fall on her face. The memories of that summer, though precious, are now both painful and wonderful to her. In the meantime, Jae-min reunites with his estranged mother after many requests from her. He tells her that he's been reading his brother's diary, where Ha-min wrote about someone named So-mong. He admits that he initially blamed her for his brother's death, but now he understands that So-mong was the only person who could have given him the hope he needed to keep going. A teary-eyed Jae-min then reveals that their mother was responsible for destroying him. In another flashback, Ha-min's mother discovers that he's been skipping extra lectures to take art lessons. She's horrified and disappointed at the same time. She then tears his artwork in front of him and demands that he attend the lessons she wants. Ha-min finally speaks up and points out that she's treating him like a doll instead of a son. Unfortunately, this only enrages the woman and she ends up slapping him mercilessly. Meanwhile, a young Jae-min witnesses the entire incident. In the present, he doesn't hold back the resentment he has built up since his brother's death. But Mom abruptly changes the topic by announcing that she's pregnant. She tells him that she wants to do better this time and asks for another chance. However, Jae-min simply congratulates her and walks away. Later, Mom also meets up with So-Mong for a private conversation. She provides her with deeper insight into Jaemin's struggles, which he has kept to himself. She reveals that when they moved to Seoul, he almost jumped off the balcony of their apartment. Mom managed to save him in the nick of time, but he coldly mumbled that he missed his big brother a lot. Because of this very reason, she sent him back to Hamin's old school, hoping that he might get some kind of closure. In a flashback, we see a series of unfortunate events which causes Hamin to spiral downwards. He's forced to leave the art studio because of his cruel mother, and his grades begin to drop, humiliating him in front of his classmates. When he finally reaches his breaking point, he calls So-Mong to the art room and hugs her tightly to recharge himself. Unfortunately, another student sees them embracing each other. The student then provokes Hamin into a fight and then reports him to the headmaster for inappropriate contact at school. Soon, the school is filled with rumors of the couple dating in the art room. In order to protect So-Mong, Hamin falsely claims that he had been with another girl. Following this, he goes from being a model student to the target of everyone's disgust. To make matters worse, the rumors turn into gossip and eventually into a scandalous affair. Hamin then suggests that he and So-Mong keep their distance until the rumors subside. She agrees to do so, unaware that she would be ignored by him for an entire year. One day, our heroine confronts him saying that she only wanted to support him. But when he started ignoring her, she felt as though their time together had been nothing more than a dream. Holding back tears, Hamin tells her that she should forget about him. This enrages So-Mong, and she calls him a coward for abandoning his own dreams. She then storms off, leaving him alone and upset. To this day, So-Mong wonders if she could have saved him had she returned to him then. In the present day, Jaemin approaches her and gives her Hamin's diary to read. Later that evening, he approaches Bo-mi and decides to tell her what really happened to his brother. Jin-young sees them from a distance and becomes a bit jealous. However, he doesn't intervene and opts to leave them alone. The next day, he officially ends their fake relationship and Bo-mi agrees, even though her feelings are now more complicated. The situation becomes even more fucked up when Jaemin and Sun-hee overhear their conversation. They learn that Bo-mi lied about liking Jin-young just for her best friend's sake. This shatters Sun-hee, and she feels her best friend was just pitying her, so she starts avoiding her altogether and spends more time with other classmates. Now that Bo-mi is alone, she goes to talk about her situation with So-Mong. She confesses that she thought she was being considerate by not dating Jaemin to protect her friendship with Sun-hee. However, she now sees that her choices were selfish, and she wishes to go back and make better decisions. After hearing the teenager out, So-Mong gives her words of encouragement. She advises Bo-mi to focus on picking up the pieces and starting anew. She then reveals that she's grappling with her own guilt, especially after reading Hanmin's diary, which questions why she wasn't there for him when he needed support the most. While returning home, So-Mong encounters a former classmate who used to torment her. They engage in a short conversation, during which the classmate reveals how she discovered So-Mong and Hanmin's relationship during their school days. She explains that when she badmouthed So-Mong out of jealousy, Hanmin defended her and threatened to end their friendship. Now, the classmate suggests that living in the past might not be what Hanmin would want. Hearing all this, our heroine is flooded with memories, making her very emotional. So she takes a personal day off and visits Hanmin's grave for the first time. She updates him on her life, including becoming a trainee teacher and meeting his younger brother. With tears in her eyes, she then apologizes for not being able to support Jaemin as much as she had hoped. A few days later, So-Mong gets into trouble when a photo of her and Jaemin meeting at the art studio goes viral online. Everyone is now accusing her of dating a student. Her mentor teacher then advises her to explain everything to the disciplinary committee to protect her future career. But So-Mong refuses to involve Jaemin in such a situation, so she decides to resign. Later in class, a teacher expresses his satisfaction that So-Mong is leaving the school. He even badmouths her, calling her a pervert. But this doesn't sit well with Jaemin, so he confronts the teacher. He asserts that So-Mong is the only person at school who is selflessly taking care of the students. He also emphasizes that she's the only one he could talk to about his brother's demise. The teacher tries to respond, but before that, Jaemin storms out of the classroom. Elsewhere, Bo-mi takes Sun-hee to a secluded place to have an honest conversation. She says she thought she was giving up Jaemin for Sun-hee's sake, but now she realizes her feelings for him weren't that strong. Instead, her feelings for Jin-young are more genuine and stronger, but she's afraid he may not reciprocate her feelings. Hearing this, Sun-hee feels bad for her best friend and decides to support her. She dismisses her concern and assures her that Jin-young feels the same way. With this assurance, Bo-mi finally gets the courage she needs to confess her feelings to Jin-young. She then rushes to him and meets him outside the school premises. However, she takes so long building up to the confession that her bus arrives and she has to leave. Jin Young seems to understand anyway and assures her with a smile that she can express it tomorrow. The following day, the school bully enters the classroom making hurtful jokes about Jae-min and his deceased brother. When Bo-mi stands up to him, the bully calls her out for her fake relationship with Jin Young. This allows her to finally confess her true feelings. She clearly announces to everyone that she hasn't broken up with Jin Young. In fact, she loves him now more than ever. Hearing this, the bully becomes aggressive and tries to attack her, but before he can do so, Sun-hee knocks him out with the big book. Afterward, Jin Young waits for Bo-mi with a big smile and officially tells her that he loves her too. This marks the start of their relationship. In the meantime, Jae-min goes to find So-mong to talk about her resignation. However, as they discuss the night his brother died, a terrible realization hits him. On that fateful night, Ha-min had been waiting for Jae-min to come home, but he had gone to Sun-hee's house instead. It turns out the two are childhood friends. During their conversation, little Sun-hee asked if Jae-min had ever wished he didn't have a brother. The latter admits that he feels sad because Ha-min often provokes their parents. Therefore, at times, he wished he didn't have a brother. At that point, someone overhears their conversation from nearby. Back in the present, Jae-min realizes that that person must have been Ha-min himself. Although a younger version of himself had clarified that he loved his brother a lot, Ha-min had already left by then. The next day, Jae-min doesn't show up for school, and no one, not even his father, knows where he is. This makes his classmates worried, and they start looking for him in different groups. So-mong also joins them and eventually finds him on a rooftop near Ha-min's grave. Jae-min is devastated because he believes that his words caused his brother's death. However, a teary-eyed So-mong assures him that everyone shares the blame and no person is solely responsible. She then comforts him with a hug, saying that she too shares the same feeling of remorse. The scene then shifts to the art room where So-mong pays a final visit to reminisce about the good memories. Jae-min sees her there and approaches her. She then gives Ha-min's journal back to him and presents him with a drawing she created. The drawing is of him and Ha-min, both wearing their high school uniforms with their arms around each other's shoulder. In return, Jae-min gives her an unopened letter he discovered in Ha-min's room. After he leaves the room, So-mong imagines a moment when Ha-min appears before her, and a younger self rushes into his arms. It feels as if they're reuniting after a long time. Ha-min then reflects on the night he passed away, and describes the beautiful sky that made him feel like he could breathe more easily. He also hopes that his loved ones can find the courage he lacked to seek help from others. He then apologizes for turning their beautiful moments into heartbreaking memories and asks So-mong not to read his final letter. He encourages her to truly move on with her life instead. So-mong assures him that the memories of him have shaped her to become who she truly is today. With a farewell kiss, Ha-min gradually fades away. Our heroine then wipes her tears and bids farewell to the summer, and with it, to Ha-min.